What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, checking out the brand new LG G5. This is LG's flagship smartphone for 2016 and launches with some notable features including a modular design. This allows us to remove the battery so we can swap out the battery while retaining a metal frame, but we can also attach accessories like a camera grip or even an audio amplifier. We also get a set of dual cameras on the back, one with a wide-angle lens and the other with a standard lens, and of course we'll test them out extensively in this video. Now before we take a closer look, let's get to the unboxing, and the unboxing actually reveals its modular design. It's kind of clever here. All we have to do is cut a piece of tape, slide out the box, and you can see this is exactly how you remove the bottom panel in order to access the battery. Of course, we're going to get to that in just a moment. Now opening the lid, the first thing we'll see here is our phone. Now lifting this up, you can see that this is the silver version, but this is also available in Titan, which is kind of a dark gray. We also have pink or gold available. We do have some additional pieces of plastic to remove. We'll find a piece along the edge toward the bottom, at least in my case. And then we also have a piece of plastic on the front and back of the lower module. We also have a screen protector on the glass. Personally, I don't want that, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. But of course, if you want, you can leave that in place. Before we take a close look at the phone, let's get to the accessories. Now first up, you can see that I do not have a set of headphones here. I guess the T-Mobile version doesn't ship with them, but I do get the USB wall adapter, which is a fast charger, and this does support Quick Charge 3.0. So we do have next generation Quick Charge 3.0 on this phone, unlike a lot of other Snapdragon 820 phones we've seen launch recently. Now the power adapter itself is still using a Type A connector, but you do get a USB-C connector with your phone. So it's USB Type A to Type C. Now LG is using a unique manufacturing process to create this metal unibody design. So this is a piece of cast aluminum alloy which is covered in a primer, a really thick primer, which is painted, and that paint actually has a metal particle in it, so it looks and feels a lot like anodized aluminum. Now to me it's a really good looking phone, but it lacks that cool touch of a metal phone. It also doesn't really feel as rigid as a metal phone, but the overall effect is really nice. Now there are some imperfections here. If you're especially nitpicky like I am, you will see some imperfections in that finish, especially next to the camera where the antenna lines are, and then if you look toward the bottom where the module connects, there is some waviness at the edge of the back panel. Now toward the back edge of the phone, you can see that we have this metal chamfer etched into the edge of the phone. This sort of highlights the metal design of the phone. I think it looks really nice. It sort of brightens up the design and makes it a little more interesting. Now this wraps around the entire edge of the phone except for a few separation points. So you'll see near the headphone jack and along the opposite corner, there are some breaks to that edge. And you can also see that toward the edge where the module is, they don't quite meet. The G5 does have a very responsive fingerprint button on the back of the phone. This works somewhat similarly to the Nexus imprint on the Nexus 6P or 5X, which is to say you just lightly tap the button to wake it up and unlock with your fingerprint. However, this is also a physical power and lock button, and unfortunately in my case the button is very loose, so it rattles noticeably when tapping the button. LG has relocated the volume controls to the side of the phone, which is more appropriate for camera functions, but personally I miss the previous location on the back of the phone. Now the most prominent feature on the back is the dual camera setup. One is a familiar 16 megapixel camera with an f1.8 aperture, while the other is an 8 megapixel wide angle camera with an f2.4 aperture that provides a very wide 135-degree viewing angle for both video and photos. Both cameras benefit from 3-axis optical image stabilization and an LED flash. We also get laser-assisted autofocusing, so the camera is able to find focus in all lighting conditions, and we do have 4K video recording on both cameras. Along the side, we'll find a combination nano SIM and micro SD card tray, which in theory supports 2 terabyte cards. Toward the top, in addition to a headphone jack towards the corner, we'll also find a microphone and an IR LED emitter for remotely controlling your home theater. Down below, we'll find a USB-C connector, a loudspeaker, and a microphone. Now the speaker is a bit louder than the one on the Galaxy S7, but ranks as one of the worst loudspeakers I've tested on a flagship phone with a great deal of distortion and a very muffled hollow sound. Part of this might be related to the fact that this entire section of the phone pops off. Now to release the module, you simply press a button along the side. The spring-loaded module pops out slightly and the battery slides out when you pull it out. The battery itself is 2800 mAh and can be detached by snapping it off the base, although it's on there very tight, so sometimes I feel like I'm about to break it off. Now if you look at the inside of the phone, you can see the internal connection, which routes the battery and USB connector to the module itself. Now the entire mechanism is pretty simple and easy to operate and latches in securely. Now there are some fit and finish issues here, which may be a concern to some. The module doesn't quite fit perfectly flush, so the edge sticks out a bit, and you can feel this in your hand. This is especially noticeable along the corners where the module meets the edge. It also doesn't fit flush across the entire length of the module, so you can actually see the gap through the foam. Now, my biggest concern with this is dust accumulation, especially over time in your pocket, and potentially water intrusion. Because we don't have a good seal here, water could get into vital components of this phone. It would probably make sense if the design had an overlapping flange for a more secure, stable, and gapless fit. The front of the phone stands out for the edge-to-edge Corning Gorilla Glass 4 front panel, which bends toward the top. This is matched by a curved bezel at the bottom of the phone. This glass also hides our earpiece and light sensors in addition to an LED notification light. We'll also find an 8-megapixel front-facing camera with an f2.0 aperture that records video at 1080p. The 5.3-inch LCD IPS display is smaller than the 5.5-inch from the G4, but LG says it's much brighter, jumping from 500 nits to 850 nits at maximum brightness. Now once again, we have a Quad HD resolution, which delivers an even sharper 554 pixels per inch thanks to the smaller footprint. The display looks solid but lacks the color saturation of the GS7 Super AMOLED display or the brightness and contrast of an iPhone. It also suffers from some noticeable backlight leaking and splotchiness, which means blacks aren't quite as solid and deep as I'd prefer to see on this display, but this is only noticeable if you're watching movies in low light. Now in terms of specs, this phone has all the top tier specs we've come to expect out of 2016 Android flagship phones. So that includes a Snapdragon 820, we also have an Adreno 530 GPU, and 4 gigs of RAM with 32 gigs of storage internally. So in terms of our Geekbench scores, we're seeing 2200 on the single core score and around 5100 on the multi-core score. That's very close to the performance of the similarly spec'd Galaxy S7. This is also pretty close to the iPhone 6s Plus on the single-core score, but blows past it on the multi-core score. All this horsepower really flies through Android 6.0 and UX 5.0, which is LG Skin, which is fairly light here. It's lighter than we've seen on the LG G4, and quite a few features are now missing, but that makes this phone really quick and smooth to operate with stable performance. So in terms of battery life, it's actually really good. We see about 5 hours of on-screen time at maximum brightness. Now admittedly, I don't really think this screen is as bright as a lot of its competition, so even at maximum brightness, this is still dialed back a bit. So in terms of camera quality, we have 2 cameras to talk about here. So we have the standard 16 megapixel camera with an f1.8 aperture. This is a really good camera. We've seen this camera before. It delivers really sharp images, good color reproduction and saturation. It's able to find the right exposure and focus. Thanks to laser autofocusing, it's also able to find focus pretty quickly and accurately in all lighting conditions. We also have a shallow depth of field, which means we get that nice blurred background, but you do have to pay more attention to where your focus points are so you actually focus on what you want. And then there is the 8 megapixel f2.0 aperture with a wide angle lens. Obviously, this is a lower spec camera, so you don't have as much resolution to work with. So really, this camera's main purpose is to get that really wide shot, and it's really impressive. It's a huge difference between the standard camera and the wide camera. It makes a big impact, and it's definitely one of my favorite features on this device. Now, in terms of low light photography, this is where these 2 cameras really diverge. Obviously, the higher quality camera is able to deliver better results here, so you're able to see a little more detail, although the image processor in here tends to over sharpen the details, so it tends to look a little noisy, a little more grainy than I like to see, but generally speaking, it's a really good camera in low light, so you're able to see quite a bit of detail. The wide angle camera does perform really good in low light conditions, but there isn't as much detail here, so you can see things are quite a bit softer, but again, you get this nice wide angle view. Video is also excellent with both cameras. Again, we have 4K with optical image stabilization. We also have laser assisted continuous autofocusing, which is very smooth and natural, so it doesn't hunt around. It's able to find focus pretty quickly and smoothly without being obvious. Video is really sharp with good exposure and detail, and you can swap between both cameras, and the transition is pretty natural here. Even though we have very different camera lenses and different camera systems, both of them look great together, and it's really nice to be able to swap between them while recording video. And generally speaking, it's really nice to have this wide angle view in certain situations. What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Borg, testing out the front-facing camera of the LG G5. With an 8 megapixel sensor and f2.0 aperture, it's a pretty decent camera here. You can see it lets a lot of light in, nice wide angle lens, and even in challenging lighting conditions, it's able to maintain the right exposure for my face so you can see me clearly. It lets a good amount of detail in, good color reproduction, and generally speaking, it's one of the better cameras or front-facing cameras I've tested to date. Next up, let's walk through the interface, but the first thing I'm going to take a look at here is the always-on display. Now you can turn this off and on under settings if you don't want it on. Now this currently displays the time and date as well as my pending notifications. Now according to LG, this only uses 0.8% of your battery battery life per hour, so it's fairly battery efficient. Now it also responds to whether it's in your pocket or not, so if you're covering the ambient light sensor or proximity sensor, it turns off. It also responds to the ambient lighting conditions, so it brightens and dims according to the light. Now of course you can double tap the screen to wake it up. It takes you right to your lock screen. You can expand out to see your notifications, or you can quickly launch into the voice app. So if you want to command Google Now, you can do so. You can also quickly launch into the phone dialer, and of course I'll have to unlock it to get to it. But if I go back to the lock screen here, you can also see that I can quickly launch into the camera app. So if I launch into the camera app, it launches fairly quickly here, but when the phone is locked, you can also double tap the volume keys for action. So we can double tap the volume key down to launch into the camera app. As you can see, it's very quick. We can also do the same when the screen is locked by double tapping the volume up key. This takes us to our memo app. This is called QuickMemo. So taking a look at our home screen, LG has made a significant change here, and that is the elimination of the app drawer. And of course, you can reinstall this using a different skin or a different launcher, and LG does offer its original launcher if you want the app drawer back. But in this case, you can see that all the apps have been loaded on the home screen. So managing your apps with this interface is a bit different here. Now, of course, we have folders here, and they've already folded many of our apps already for us, including this T-Mobile bloatware folder. And you can go up here to rename it or change the color. So if you want to change the color of your folders, you can. Now, if you want to uninstall or move apps around, just tap and hold here. And you can see that I can move this around, I can folder it, or I can go up to uninstall. So that uninstalls the item here. We can click uninstall, and it tells me that I have 24 hours to restore this if I want. So within that 24-hour period, if I tap and hold on the home screen here, I can go to uninstall apps and reinstall it if I want. Now, speaking of moving items, you can actually add up to 6 apps into the dock at once here. And of course, you can also folder them if you want in the dock. So there we go. We have up to 6 apps, and they automatically resize for us. Now, unfortunately, certain apps cannot be uninstalled. So if we go to drag and drop the item, you can see that we do not have the uninstall feature available, but you can hide them. It's a bit buried here. So we'll have to go to home screen settings to get to it. So we go to home screen settings and we go to hide apps. We can actually select certain apps to hide entirely. Now, if we tap and hold on the home screen, we get to our editor. So we have 2 home screens here, and the only way to add new home screens is if you want to move apps around. So for example, if I tap and hold on this, I can drag and drop it to another home screen to create a third home screen. So if you're curious about how to do that, that's how you do it. Anyway, getting back to that editor, we do have widgets. So this is where we have access to our widgets. So we have this horizontal scroll, and you can also go up to delete specific widgets from your widget drawer. We also get our home screen settings, and there's a lot going on here. So you can select your launcher. So if you want a different launcher, you can select it. Now, Easy Home actually does have the app drawer. So if we click onto Easy Home, you can see the app drawer is now back here. But of course, this is a very different layout. So personally, I wouldn't want this. Now, typically, I don't really talk about wallpapers, but LG does have kind of a neat feature here under Live Wallpapers, and that is 360 wallpaper. So we get this 360 image. So as you can see, when you move the phone around, it actually adjusts the view, which is neat. So let's go and apply this to show you how this works. So on the home screen now, if I move the phone around, you can see the entire image moves with the phone. It's kind of neat. Now you can also install different live wallpaper themes, such as transparent live wallpaper, which uses the camera to create a transparent view through your phone. Now taking a look at the drop-down notification shade, of course down below we have all of our notifications, which are expandable, so if you want to see more detail, and we have clear all down below. Of course you can also swipe to dismiss them as well. Now toward the top here, if we can get to the top, we have our quick setting toggles, which includes Capture Plus, Wi-Fi, sound, Bluetooth, rotation, location, sync, NFC, flashlight, and airplane mode. So Capture Plus is basically a screen grab utility that allows us to take a screen grab of whatever we're doing, and then we can go ahead and annotate it, and they do give us these little tools here to do so. So we can change our transparency, the size, and our color. So let's pick something that's in more contrast to this green display, but there you go. You can draw on it, annotate it, whatever, and then you can save it to QuickMemo Plus or your gallery. So I'm going to say QuickMemo Plus. Of course, we have our Wi-Fi toggle. You can turn that on and off, as well as our sound profile. So we have vibrate, silent, and normal sound. Bluetooth, same story. Rotation lock, location, sync, NFC, and flashlight. Quick access to a flashlight, which is handy, in addition to airplane mode. Of course, you can also just tap and hold on this to get to your settings panel associated with that toggle. We also have our screen brightness slider in addition to auto mode. So if you want to click that on, you can. And then we have screen sharing. So this uses Miracast to wirelessly broadcast the display and audio of this device to a Miracast compliant device like a smart TV or a Chromecast. We also have file sharing. This uses Bluetooth low energy, so when this is on, other devices can access the files on this device wirelessly using Bluetooth low energy. So you can see file sharing, Smart Share Beam you can turn on as well, and you can see the name of the device on the Bluetooth network. But wait, there's more. So we can go up to settings and you can see we have more toggles, which includes data, battery saver, color inversion, and do not disturb. Now you're limited to a number of toggles up here, so if you want to add these, you'll have to remove one of them, but of course you can just drag and drop them and bump them around if you want. We can also add a volume slider or turn off brightness, screen sharing, file sharing, or whatever you don't want up there. So click done, and now you can see we have a volume slider in addition to our individual controls for controlling volume for certain functions, from ringtone to notification sounds, touch feedback and system sounds, and as you can see it times out here, and then you also have your music, video games, and other media sounds. LG has made a slight tweak to the recent apps viewer, so you can see that we have these little pin icons next to the close icon, so that means we can pin these apps so we don't accidentally close them out. So now you can see I can't swipe them, and if I hit clear all, that app won't disappear. You can also theme out your phone with different skins. Now, I've downloaded one called Color Pencil, but you can add new ones by going to this plus icon, and it takes you to the LG Smart World store where you can download new ones. And there's a lot to take a look at here, but unfortunately the store is really slow to operate. So we're just going to skip this and add or apply the Color Pencil theme to show you. Click Apply. And then once that's applied, if we go to the home screen now, you can see it's changed the wallpapers, the iconography, so all the system apps have changed to different icons that match this sort of paper theme. And then you can see for apps that don't have a matching icon, they wrap them in this sort of design, which makes them more consistent with the rest of the interface. We can also change the grid of the interface, so we can go 4x4, 4x5, which is default, or 5x5 if you want a denser view. So now if we go to the home screen now, you can see the apps have a denser layout. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically rearrange them, so you have to go back and rearrange them if you want. Now, a feature that is off by default, at least on this T-Mobile version, is Smart Bulletin. So we can go ahead and click that on, and you can actually go to settings here to change what appears under Smart Bulletin. So we can rearrange them if we want, LG Health, Calendar, etc., or you can turn certain ones off, and you can download new features from LG Smart World. Now, there's not a lot of Smart Bulletin apps here, so we're just going to skip this and take a look at what Smart Bulletin is. So to get to Smart Bulletin, you just swipe all the way to the right on the home screen, and it's the leftmost panel. So this aggregates information like LG Health, your calendar, music player, smart settings, quick remotes. You can quickly access your IR blaster on the top for remotely controlling your AV equipment. And then we have Adreno, so you can plug in third-party apps as well. And again, you can rearrange them if you want, or go up to settings to manage this as well. In terms of these Android navigation keys, if you tap and hold, we do have Android 6.0, so you can do Google Now on tap or jump right to Google Now. But you can also tap and hold on the recent apps key to bring up settings. That's an LG feature we've had for a while, but I think a lot of people forget it's here. Now, this is contextual, so if I'm in Chrome and I do this, it brings up settings for Chrome. If I'm on the home screen, it brings up settings for the home screen. Now, in terms of the app selection, we have quite a few things here. We have QuickMemo Plus, which works with that screen grab feature. Of course, you can also just handwrite notes if you want. We also have some tools, including weather, a file manager, a calculator, task list, download folder, voice recorder, and Evernote, which is a third-party app that came installed. We also have some LG apps like Quick Remote, which works with the IR Blaster. We have LG Health for monitoring your fitness data, and LG Smart World for buying apps or content on their store. We also have management, so these are basically settings shortcuts. So this takes you directly to certain settings panels like the battery saver mode. We also have the LG Friends Manager. Now, LG Friends is what they call accessories that work specifically with this phone. So that includes accessories that connect directly to it, or accessories that work through Bluetooth, like their 360 camera, their headphones, and you can find out more here just by browsing the available accessories. Now, if you press and hold the power button, we get to some familiar features. We have power off and restart, and turn on airplane mode. But if we wait a moment, we'll see something else appear. And that is voice care.
Is there anything I can help you with? Voice care helps you use your phone when the screen is cracked or black.
So basically, this is sort of an interface if something goes wrong with your phone.
I need to know the condition of the phone. Can you see what's on the screen?
So there you go. You can respond to it if you want. Now, of course, a lot is always revealed under the settings panel, and there's a lot going on with an LG phone, so let's get to it. Now, the settings panel has two views here, such as list view, which I personally prefer, but you can also go with the default tab view, which includes network, sound, and notifications, display, and general. Of course, you can also just search for whatever you want, so if you start typing in display, jumps you right to display settings. So let's go back to that list view and just go down it. So we have quick toggles for airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and mobile data. If you go to call here, you can see we have settings for decline and reject calls, and you can do so with a message if you want. You can also reject calls for certain numbers. If you want to block certain numbers, you can do that. You can also reject calls from private numbers. We do have features like voice over LTE and Wi-Fi calling. So again, if your carrier supports it like T-Mobile does, you can select it right here. We also have share and connect, and this is where we have toggles for NFC and Android Beam. If you tap on this, you can see we have tag reading. So this will alert you when you're reading a tag via NFC. Android Beam, this will explain how this feature works, but basically it works with NFC to create a secure connection so you can transfer files with Bluetooth. We also have file sharing, so we have file sharing via Bluetooth Low Energy or Smart Share Beam, which works between LG devices. We also have Media Server, which works with the DLNA protocol, so you can access files from this device on another device or vice versa. All you have to do is set up a DLNA server by clicking this on. We also have Mirror Link. This is LG's automotive solution, so if your head unit supports it, you can connect your phone to your head unit and control your phone directly by sharing the screen. We also have LG AirDrive, which works with your LG account to transfer files, and then we have printing, so you can set up your printing accounts here. Under sound and notifications, we have our sound profiles, which again you can also access from the quick setting toggles up top. We also have vibration strength, so you can change the vibration strength for certain features. We also have vibration type, so you can change that from the standard to other intermittent options. We also have apps, so you can see which apps are pushing notifications, and you can limit them here as well. We also have our notification LED light, which you can turn off, and you can see certain colors for certain features. We can also tell this phone to read our caller info and messages out loud. We can go to more settings here, and we can turn on things like read messages out loud. So this will actually read your text messages in addition to your info. Under display settings, this is where we'll find always on display. So you can turn this off if you don't want it, but we have some additional settings here. So this is where we can change what is displayed. We can choose the time, or we can choose our signature. And if we want to modify this, we go to next. So we can change the font, and we can change what is displayed here. So right now you're limited to a certain number of characters, so I can't display my entire name. We can also modify our home touch button, so we can change the button combination and add some features. So we can rearrange the standard buttons, we can't remove them, but we can rearrange them to whatever we want, but we can also add notification, Capture Plus, and that's all we can add right now. And that adds things like quick access to our drop-down notification shade without having to reach up to the top to get to it. We can also jump to our QuickMemo Plus, so this allows us to take a screen grab of what we're doing, annotate it, and that sort of thing. We also have Q Slide. So this is a feature we're familiar with from previous LG devices. So if we add that, we now have quick access to Q Slide apps. These are windowed apps. They are only LG apps, so you're limited to whatever they provide. That includes things like a calculator. So you get this little windowed app, which you can resize, and you can also change the opacity here, so you can interact with something in the background without interfering with the app in the foreground. And then if you want to regain access to it, just bring up the opacity. Now you can open up two apps side by side here. So let's go ahead and open up the file manager. So again, we have this little file manager here, which you can resize, but if I try to open up something else here, like the email app, you can see it tells me I can only have two open at once. So if I go to the home screen now, you can see it stays floating in the background. And again, I can change the opacity so I can interact with the calculator back here, or I can go to maximize the app. I can also change the color of the button, so if I want black, I can go with that, click OK, and you can see we now have a black background. We can also hide home touch buttons on certain apps. So for example, I can select Chrome here, so when I go to Chrome, the buttons hide until I swipe up to invoke them. Under lock screen, we have our screen unlock type, so I just have to enter in my password here, and you can see that we do have the knock code. This is a feature that LG's had for quite a while, so you can customize the knock code from the screen. We also have the weather information on the lock screen, so this will actually show you your current weather conditions if you have precipitation or something like that right on your lock screen. We also have smart settings, a feature that has been revised quite a bit for the LG G5. So these are automated actions which are dependent on things like geolocation, whether you're connecting headphones, connecting to Bluetooth or whatever. So for example, at home, you can select your home location, and when you're home, you can change your sound profile. So if you want to mute your notifications, you can do that. Turn Bluetooth on or off, or change the Wi-Fi settings. And if you connect a set of headphones, you can tell it to open up a specific app. So for example, if I want it to open up YouTube, all I have to do is scroll down to the YouTube app or the Play Music app in this case. Let's click that and click OK. It adds it automatically. So if I connect a set of headphones, that app opens automatically. Under battery and power saving, this is where we'll find our battery saving options. So that includes battery saver mode, which we can click on here. Now you can see that it's programmed to activate at 15%. Now if you want to change this, we have to go to settings here, and you can go ahead and change change this to immediately if we want 5% or again 15%. Now when this is turned on, you can tell it to restrict apps in the background, so this will tell you exactly what this does. You can also see we can block use of always on display, so this will turn that feature off. We also have this game optimizer, so again we can find out what this does by clicking it on. So we have base optimization, adjust the video resolution to save your battery, so you can select that, or we can go with full optimization. So full optimization will adjust the video resolution and frame rate to save your battery. We also have smart cleaning, so this is a utility that frees up some storage space. So once it estimates, you can see how much storage space it can free up from temporary files, raw files, downloaded files, or idled apps. And if you want to clean these, you go to each individual item and you tell it to clean them. Now this camera app has a lot going on here. You can quickly swap between the main camera and the wide camera like so, but we also have another trick for activating this. So we can pinch in and out like so, and this will actually change the view. So if you want more cropped view, this jumps back to the normal camera. If you pinch out, this will jump back to the wide camera, so that's kind of neat. Of course, you can snap your photograph, tap and hold to take a burst shot, and then you can record video. You can also pause and resume recording if you want, and this is in 4K in both the main camera and the wide camera. Now you can swap between the different cameras while recording video, so that's kind of nice to have. We also have quick access to our social media apps here. So if you want to share your photo, video with Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, you have quick access to it right here. We also get plenty of modes to play with, including pop out, which adds effects to our photograph. And you can see we have this sort of square view in addition to a background view. So you can customize what the background does. So you can do this fisheye effect, black and white effect, vignette, or lens blur. So you can apply all of them if you want. And you can change this view from square to circular to rectangle to lengthwise or landscape, etc. So you have plenty of effects to play with here if you need to. We also have multi-view. This basically uses all three cameras to generate a single photograph, which is kind of neat. So you can snap a photograph one at a time and it stitches it all together. We also have Snap, and this will basically record 3 to 60-second clips and you can stitch it all together into one video. And then we have other familiar features like panorama, slow motion, and time-lapse. Now we do have a manual mode, which you can activate by tapping the ellipses in the upper left corner. So you can see we have manual mode, auto mode, and simple mode. So let's go to manual mode. And you can see we have controls for everything. So we can see all of our metering points, which is using that laser AF system. You can see our white balance, manual focus, exposure controls, ISO, aperture, and we can also lock our exposure. So this gives us direct manual controls for controlling our camera settings like you might have with a professional camera. Also, when you're in manual mode, you can save images in the RAW format. Now, unfortunately, manual mode only works with the still camera, so this does not work in video mode like the LG V10. Under settings, we'll find our resolution and aspect ratio, so you can pick that for both the camera and your resolution for the video camera. Now this works the same in both cameras, so you don't lose anything from switching between the two cameras, which is nice. You can also see we have auto HDR or off, so you can turn that on and off if you want. And then we have different filters we can apply. We also have our shutter release timer, and then we have our voice control. So if you want to say cheese, this will automatically snap a photograph. Now I can quickly switch between the front-facing and rear-facing camera just by swiping up on the screen. And we do have some gestures here which we can use. So if I hold up my hand here, this will actually snap a photograph.
Now, in the end, the LG G5 is definitely generating some controversy. Now, it is a flagship phone with fantastic specs and performance with fantastic cameras, as we've always come to expect from LG. Now, I'm a big fan of that wide-angle camera, and I could definitely see this coming to more smartphones, and I think that's the main reason I would choose this phone over anything else. That camera is really nice to have. But in terms of the display, it's definitely not the best out there. The design is kind of mediocre, and it definitely doesn't have the finish and polish I would like to see at this flagship level, especially as something that's built as a metal phone. And the modular design is only compelling if you intend to swap out your battery frequently or add those modules, which I don't think a lot of people do. So you have to really want that feature in order to go with the LG G5. So personally for me, the modular design probably isn't worth the complications it has caused with the design and fit and finish of the phone. But I definitely applaud LG for its design innovation and its commitment to preserving battery swappability. But I think this is a product that probably needs another iteration to polish its manufacturing issues and design faults. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed this exhaustive look at the LG G5. If you guys enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up to let me know, and I'll see you again in the next video.